All right, and welcome back to Alternative Discussion West. This is your host, Ryan Banks, and I'm bringing you episode 11. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in, telling friends, spreading the word on social media. We really like seeing all of our new listeners, and it's exciting to watch this thing grow. Today, I have a special guest for you guys, a friend of mine over the last 5 years, and kind of a lifer in the punk rock scene. This is Mr. Kevin Treat. You guys know him as KT from Year of the Fist. What's going on, KT?
How's it going, Ryan?
What's happening, man? I really am excited to have you here today. I think you've got a great story. You know, it's a positive story with a lot of twists and turns, you know, through quite a career in this business. So you say you're born in Walnut Creek, but your folks live in Oakland.
My folks were living in Oakland at the time. I was born in a hospital there in Walnut Creek, but we were living in Oakland as a baby and moved to Castro Valley and eventually into Livermore about 1975, and then my parents had divorced. And my mom moved us out to Manteca.
So you end up out there kind of in this, is that the Central Valley?
That's
what it's in?
It's south of south of Stockton. It's definitely in the Central Valley, and there ain't nothing out there, especially back then. There was nothing but trees and a Safeways.
So this is the mid-'70s.
This is the mid-'70s.
And you end up in Manteca.
I end up in Manteca.
And that's your mom and your sister?
And my mom and my sister, and my grandparents lived there, so that's what we first moved into with, and you know, that's just where we settled up.
That was the connection out there.
That was the connection to move out there, exactly.
Okay, so you move around a little bit in your early life, and then you end up Manteca, Stockton, out there where it's 110 degrees. There's absolutely nothing out there for those that have been out there.
Absolutely nothing out there.
And you go through your childhood out there. You go to school.
Yes, we go through school.
Going to high school out there, East Union High.
East Union High is where I started. And then, you know, we got to about junior year and algebra came about. And I was like, yeah, send me on over to continuation school, man. I'm ready to go to work.
I'll take this somewhere else.
There's only money I'm going to make is with my arms and not with my brain.
So algebra chased you out of there.
For sure.
So around that time, you say your dad introduced you to one of his friends.
My dad introduced me to one of his friends. I wanted to play music so bad. It was a big deal to me to watch. My dad would take us to live bands, parties, and stuff like that. And
these are rock bands?
These are rock bands, country bands. We'd go to weddings. We'd go to live. A lot of his friends played music. And one of his really close friends, Mr. Richard Benavides, was the guy that got me into music. And
he had a band that kind of played around.
He had a band all his life. You know, he had been playing around all over. He was a Bay Area guy that ended up in Manteca. So it was a funny thing that my dad's best friend lived in Manteca. And
so kind of a connection there.
It worked out great for me to get into music with him. Yeah.
So you get your first bass around what?
I was 13. It was my 13th birthday.
And you immediately start playing with this guy.
I immediately started playing with him in the garage. And it wasn't even a year. About a year later, he threw me up on a stage at like some chili cook-off or something, you know.
And you guys are doing classic covers.
Classic covers, you know. Rod Stewart, "Wake Up Maggie, I think I got," you know. And I'm wearing a Suicidal Tendencies shirt, you know. That was a little bit later on, but yeah, you know.
So you're just playing the latest hits and the
whatever
country rock, pop rock,
and basically he was teaching me how to play. And so that's what it was.
He would bring the songs and you would just learn them.
Yes, sir.
And it was a full band?
And it was a full band.
What did he play?
He played guitar and he sang.
Okay.
And then he'd have a drummer and he'd have another guitar player come in. And then he had me on bass, the young guy.
And he had a decent voice?
And he had a decent voice and people loved it. And it was great. You know, it wasn't spectacular music, but he had gigs in Manteca and he was really well known around there. And it was fun.
And so you were playing off a few times a year or more than that, maybe?
Probably a couple times, 3 times a year, I guarantee that.
At the different local festivals?
Yeah, like the library park and then the downtown. I remember playing on back one of those little trailers, you know.
A lot of outdoor gigs.
A lot of outdoor gigs. So you got beep, feedback, you know.
Yeah, not real well paid, just some outdoor stuff.
Exactly.
So you end up growing up out there. You end up going to continuation school, and you do graduate from continuation out there?
I did graduate. That was one of the things I told myself. I was like, you better at least graduate from high school.
Yeah.
You better at least pull that off.
Yeah, you know, if anything. Right?
If anything, you got to at least pull that off, you know.
So you graduate, and what year is that in?
Well, I was supposed to graduate in 89, but it got pushed out a year, so I graduated in 90.
And that's the start of the 90s.
And that was the start of the 90s right there. And I was already working working a job at a truck dock, and I ended up going full time the next day.
Really? As soon as you graduated,
as soon as I left school that next day, I went full time.
And what kind of work were you doing there at the truck stop?
I was unloading trucks,
Okay.
Unloading
So
freight.
moving around the 18-wheelers.
Exactly. Well, at first I started on the docks unloading the trucks, and I really wanted to be a truck driver. That was my thing.
Where did you find a fascination in that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
a truck driver.
Music was something that I just did, and I was stoked that I did it. But it was.
You had planned a career as a truck driver.
Yeah, like that.
Or visualized it.
I visualized that would be something that I'd love to do.
Yeah.
And I worked that job till I was 22 years old, and ultimately they gave me a drug test, and I never drove truck again.
And that was that.
That was that.
So you never went back into diesel or had...
No, it was the early 90s is when they started doing the serious drug testing on truck drivers, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but I was just a pothead kid, and next thing you know, I was like, yeah, that doesn't work.
So you're out of that quick.
So I got fired, and I was pretty upset.
Now, around that same time, you're also you said you had an interest in Harleys, and you're building motorcycles.
I built my first Harley at 17 years old with I called him my stepdad.
Okay.
And we built it right in the front room of where I lived because I lived with him. And then I built my own at 20. And then I wrecked it 3 days after we built it. And I never wanted to ride a motorcycle ever again after that.
Really? Where was the accident at?
It was right here in Pittsburgh, over here at Hillcrest Boulevard, man. No one was even around me, and I hit the center divider. It kicked the bike out from underneath me. And
you just weren't paying attention, or
I was too fast.
Oh,
and
shit,
I had to have those big ape hanger handlebars, the ones that are 3 feet above your head.
Oh,
you ever try to ride a motorcycle like that?
Oh, Lord, no.
Fucking hard. And man, I was just a young kid going too fast, and
you're hauling ass.
Broke my ankle, slid that bike 100 yards. And I just knew right then and there I never wanted to ride a motorcycle again.
And you really haven't?
I never really have.
Really? So the broken ankle was really a blessing.
Which was a really blessing because I didn't have a helmet on either. That was the last year of no helmet law.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's in what year? That's early 90s.
92 is when the helmet law came, I think, or 93.
Wow.
I think.
So you have a big spill and around the same time lose your job at the
truck
due to
place
the drug testing.
And so it was just like, fuck, and I really loved music, and I started playing more and more and more. And then
because for a couple of years you had been out of it.
I had been out of it. I hadn't really picked it up
since the covers
and all that. And I picked it back up again. And I was thinking, man, this is I love this. This is what I love to do. And then I had hooked up with an old high school friend that. I knew a lot about punk rock. I listened to it, but I didn't really know how bands worked in punk rock. I didn't know how
the underground
scene. I didn't know nothing about it. You know, and my old friend,
you knew county fairs, chili cook-offs,
exactly. So once I got into that in Stockton, I had a couple of friends that were throwing shows there and doing stuff. And when I got into that and started seeing how things were and how they worked, and seeing bands come from East Coast and playing in Stockton.
Yeah, just to play these small halls.
Play these small halls, but I was just hooked. I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
Punk rock is a family. This is where I need to be a part of.
You found a place you fit.
I found a place I fit after all these years, and it wasn't only that many years. I was only 23 years old, you know what I mean?
But yeah, a lot get in earlier than that. So you start seeing kind of how the local scene works.
I started seeing how the scene worked, traveled around with a couple of bands, just like, kind
of roadieing or doing merch.
I roadied and merch, did that for a couple of years, and I just loved every minute of it till I was like, okay, well, it's time for me to,
So what kind of shows are coming through town in Stockton?
Oh, we had great shows there. We had Citizen Fish come through there, Screw 32, Swinging Utters, AFI.
Everybody
all
was
those
coming
bands
through.
were coming
And this
through.
is at, what was the venue?
The CSM Hall.
And that was where you guys were booking a lot
That's
of the
where we were
times.
booking a lot of shows there because we had an inn there. My friend Daryl that was throwing it had the inn there. And the guy loved him, and he said, yeah, whatever you want to do here, so it just worked.
And the big turnouts at these shows?
Big turnouts, because those bands...
Hundreds of kids.
I wouldn't say hundreds, but I would say close to 100 at some times.
It's a nice full hall.
Because those bands that would play, like AFI and Swinging Utters and Screw 3, those bands were big back then, or bigger.
Sure, and this
they were
early
climbing
90s.
The early 90s. They were really wanted, and
wow.
So it was really great to be a part of all that.
And you were helping doing the booking, the flyering.
I was doing the flyering, most of the legwork. I
Yeah.
wasn't doing much of the booking. Dave did that, and Daryl took care of securing the venue and all that stuff. And then I got into helping with doing the footwork, running security, doing the flyers beforehand and stuff like that. And then getting, that got me close to bands and meeting them and seeing how how they did it.
Kind of the inner workings of it all.
How it all worked out, man. I just fell in love with it since day one.
Yeah, and seeing the band's passion coming from the East Coast to play Stockton at a Vets Hall.
Yeah.
And just kind of tying that in and going, this is me.
Yeah, and they're working their ass off, I mean, they were getting out, setting up their gear, doing their shit, setting up, down to everything. They're working.
Yeah, tear downs to the merch running, to the,
exactly.
paying for their own lunch and dinner.
Exactly. It was something that I was like, I'm going to be a part of this forever.
So you end up helping out with those Vets Halls, and that was the Core was the group?
The name we called ourselves the Core.
And that was the group booking out there in Stockton. How long was it that you were a part of that?
I would say I was a part of that for at least 3 years. And then, Dave, then I started a band. So then I went off to start a band. I started the Oozzies. Well, me and some other friends.
And Dave was one of the head bookers at that time?
At the Core.
Okay. So
what had happened is, so then I started this band, and then Dave kind of joined immediately, and then we decided to move.
And this is the first band that you kind of get started?
This is kind of the first punk band that I had ever really done.
Okay, and you're writing the songs.
We were all writing the songs together. We recorded out in Stockton, our first 7-inch, played the city. Scott Alcoholicos got our first San Francisco show in 96.
As the Oozzies.
As the Oozzies. And then we had a chance. Dave wanted to move on to Tacoma. And he's like, hey, why don't we just take the whole band? And at the time, it was a great thing for me to move. And we all did. And we just moved up there.
So the Oozzies end up moving up to Tacoma after the first release.
Yeah.
And you guys take the party up there. So I think that'd be a good place. We'll take our first break. We will come back. We'll talk more about the Oozzies, get into your 5 or 6 years with them, and then kind of the path that led you down. And then we will end up talking more about your years with Year the Fist, and also a new band you're in called Twin Screw Steamer. We'll be right back, a little bit more with KT. All right, and we are back with my guest, KT, kind of talking about the formation of his punk band, the Oozzies. And then you said you guys took it from Stockton right up to Tacoma.
Right up to Tacoma, Washington, yeah. And we moved up there, and we had already knew a few bands up in there, so we just kind of got right into playing music right when we got there.
And that was Dave is the one that brought you guys up there?
Yeah, Dave was.
He had work up there? Or?
Yeah, his job had transferred him up there. He had an opportunity to make more money, and so he wanted to go. And at the time, I was kind of just following him because he had already been doing this shit through high school and stuff, and I was kind of new to it. So I was like, well, let's just get out of here. I needed to get out of the valley anyway.
And he knew people up there?
We just knew bands.
Just people you had met through booking?
Through booking and doing shows there in Stockton. And it was easy for us to kind of go up there. Made it easier, yeah.
Before moving, the Oozzies record All Grown Up, the 7-inch. You said that was recorded with one of the guys from Pavement?
One of the guys from Pavement, he's the drummer. He was the older guy.
And he had a studio out?
He has a studio in the middle of nowhere. And somebody in the band had knew him, and we just hooked up with him and went out there and
really? Was that band doing well at that time?
Pavement? He wasn't even in the band anymore.
Oh, okay. He had been an original member or something.
He was an original member, I'm pretty sure, but he was like way older than everybody in the band, and he was the crazy one. I don't know the true stories.
He's a mad scientist out there.
Yeah, so he was kind of out of the band by that time, but he had still made a lot of money off of that.
And then you guys print the All Grown Up 7-inch yourself, or is that on a label?
No, that was all put out by ourselves.
Okay, so it's self-released.
Self-released.
And you guys take what's left of that up to Tacoma with you.
You take it up to Tacoma and just try to start over up there.
And do you start playing shows right away in Tacoma?
Immediately, we started playing shows.
First weekend.
I wasn't even there a month, and we were already playing shows.
Yeah,
because we had known all the main bands there. They had been down in Stockton and playing Papa Wheelie, Portrait of Poverty, those old bands like that.
And so this is mid 90s.
This is like 1990, the end of 96, early 97.
Okay. And what's the scene like in Tacoma? Is it vibrant? Is it happening?
It was just about as big as it was in Stockton.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of just like Stockton.
Yeah.
The towns are not
port town.
Yeah.
Outside of the city.
Outside of the major cities, a blue collar type, It was the same as Stockton.
And where are you guys living there?
Well, I moved to the Hilltop.
Yeah.
Which is crack neighborhood. I moved in.
Oh, really? You were in the bad side of town?
Yeah, because I didn't have a dollar to piss in, really. I was working somewhere. So I don't know where I was working at, but I got this little crack hotel. Or it was an apartment. My neighbor sold crack, and he had hookers there.
Really?
And I remember just living there, and I had, the only furniture I had a van seat that I had found on the sidewalk.
And that was your couch?
That was my couch, and it was like someone ripped it out of a van, and I put it there, and I was sleeping in the closet. And it was just hell.
Really?
It was hell. But I moved on. I pushed through it, and I ended up moving back in with some buddies, so it ended up getting better. But when I first got there, it was hell.
It was a rough area.
It was rough because I was, drinking, partying, and then,
end up in the worst place.
Doing the stupidest shit you could ever think of. I just didn't care.
So also around the you guys getting to Tacoma, you guys book your first kind of national tour. And that's 30 days, 40 days?
It was a 30-day tour, 28 shows. And we never went far east as Salt Lake City. It was all West Coast.
Okay, so it's 30 days on the west.
But as far north as Montana and as far south as Tucson. So
and that was on the All Grown Up?
The All Grown Up. And then by then we had already put out a split with a band called Monster Truck Driver that we did right before we had left for that tour up there.
Okay, Tacoma. So you had 2 7-inches.
We had 2 7-inches and some shirts. 7 binder papers full of phone numbers. And
took to it.
And we just went to town. And it took like 4 months to book it. And we just took off.
Where does that tour go?
It started, we went straight from Tacoma, Washington to Missoula, Montana. It was a long drive. Not the smartest thing in the world, but back then none of us were.
And this is your first tour being in a band?
In a band.
And being part of
playing,
okay.
not roadieing, not selling merch, just doing my thing.
And on that tour, is it just you guys go? Is it just the band? Or
just the band went.
No roadie, no
roadie. Just went for it.
And everyone's kind of partying at the time?
Everyone's partying hard.
I mean, we're talking heavy drinking.
We're talking heavy drinking and whatever else we could get our hands on.
That was the band's MO. That was everybody.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And, ultimately it was pretty much a devastation of myself, but
But the tour does okay.
The tour went well. We met a lot of people. Actually, we played in San Francisco, and we played at I can't think of the name of the club. People are going to laugh at me on that one. But I had met a good friend of mine, Mark Mortensen, he was at the time, he just got out of Screw 32 on their fat stuff, and he seen us play, and we were wanting to come back to California anyway.
Oh, to move back to California.
Move back.
That was already talked about.
It was already talked about. We'd been up there almost 2 years, and we were kind of bummed. You know, we just missed California, and we seen Mark. Mark was a good friend of ours. He's an awesome drummer.
He's doing well.
He's doing well, and he's like, man, I'll play. You know, if you guys move back, you know, I'll join. And that was more of an incentive for us to come back to have such a great drummer. So that ended up happening, and then we ended up coming back.
So was there any other releases when you guys were in Tacoma?
No.
Any other recordings? No.
We ended up hightailing it out of there and coming back to Oakland. Actually, we all went to Oakland.
So you spent a couple years in Tacoma, do the tour, play everywhere there's to play out there.
A bunch of stuff in Seattle with the Piss Drunks and all those bands, and you know, just actually made a good home up there with some good people. And, you know, didn't leave on bad terms or nothing, but, you know, we had a good following there and a bunch of good friends. Still friends of mine are up there to this day.
With all those crews that
with
were
all
up
those
in
crews,
Seattle, Tacoma area.
To what, you know, what's left of everybody, but, you know, everyone's pretty old now. But, yeah, then we came back and we just started playing again.
And what year is that you come back into Oakland?
That was the end of 98.
Okay.
So it was like 2 years we were in Tacoma. You know, and then we came back and we just started hitting it hard again.
And then playing a bunch locally.
Played a bunch
was there
local.
More touring going on?
No, just local shows. It was kind of a rough path there. The singer, or Johnny, ended up quitting. So we ended up getting the singer from the Piss Drunks from Seattle. He ended up.
Oh, really?
He left. The Piss Drunks were kind of broken up. He left and he came back down here and joined us. And then the partying continued, you know what I mean? And we just kept hitting it hard. And then,
what kind of shows were you guys playing at that time? You said you landed a lot of good shows out in Sacramento, a lot in San Francisco.
Yeah, a lot of good shows. I mean, before we moved to Tacoma, we had played a really good show there in Sacramento. We played with the Dropkick Murphys, The Business, and it was Pressure Point. We opened that show. Wow. That was probably one of my first sold out shows that I had ever played. And just, wow.
And the Oozzies was the opening band.
The Oozzies was the opening band, but at that time there was people still singing our songs and stuff, so we had been around a little bit. It was quite of an experience, you know.
So you were playing good shows.
Playing
pretty
decent
often.
shows. Yeah, then we
do an opening for the national acts and stuff.
Yeah, not all the time, but yeah, we did a few, and then we always had great shows here in the city with Bar Feeders and all those bands, you know, had a lot of good times.
So when does the first full length come together?
Well, we ended up doing a little deal with Industrial Strength Records after Buzzy joined the band, and we put that full-length Nation Out of Hand out.
Okay.
And then that's when we went to we toured that the East Coast.
So you did do a little more touring at that point?
I did a little more touring. We did a 3-week tour over there with UK Subs and Oxymoron.
Wow.
And then
those must have been good shows.
Those were my last shows with Oozzies.
Okay.
We came back from the East Coast, and I was done.
You were toast.
They were done with me, and I was done with them.
You were physically exhausted from partying.
Partying was my big downfall.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's kind of that's when I started to fade. You know, I just turned 30. I was 29, and I quit.
30 was knocking.
30 was knocking. I turned 30 on 9/11, the day the Twin Towers went down.
Oh, that was your 30th birthday.
That was my 30th birthday, and I just, you know, I was already just fizzling down.
Kind of taking a nosedive.
Taking a nosedive in life and not giving two fucks about anything. And it got bad, you know, it got really bad for me. It was very emotional and hard. But I always knew that I needed to pull out of this. You know, there was something. I played in a couple bands.
So
Then I took a trip after that. I went back to Washington after I left the Oozzies. And I went up there and I played in another band called the Crossbones with some other friends, and I was a complete...
Kind of some of the old crew from...
Some of the old crew from back in the day.
You're still drinking.
Still drinking, still doing my thing, you know, still partying. And then
that was the Crossbones. Did you guys record anything, or...?
We never did anything. We recorded once, but I don't think it ever amounted to anything. I couldn't even remember any of it.
It never hit the light of day.
It never hit
So
the
your
light of
memory
day.
gets faint at this point, and then you said there was a couple other bands at that time?
Yeah, then I hung out in Tacoma for a while there, and then I came back to Stockton.
Was just kind of drifting back and forth?
I was just drifting. I didn't have no real, direction, because I was just partying and I was using. And then I ended up joining a band called Shootin' Lucy with Dave again.
Dave from the Oozzies.
Yeah, which is ironic, right? So, and I lasted about a year or two in that. We went on
that band was based out of where?
Out of Oakland.
Okay.
And then we did a Northwest tour, and then I ended up quitting on stage at the Stork Club. Like I just quit.
Just in an episode or something.
I was just done. I was just a mess. It was hard. It's hard for me to even talk about all this stuff because I don't really, I remember everything, but it was such a blur.
Yeah.
Life was hard. From when I turned 30 years old till I was 38 was a mess.
Yeah, so a lot of long nights. A lot of
long nights, nowhere to go. I think I paid rent on a place maybe for about 6 months in that whole 8 years.
And it was just couch surfing.
It was couch surfing, living in
friends.
Cars, living in my van.
Sleeping
wherever I laid my head that night. And, it was pretty bad.
And so you end up in a band kind of towards the end of everything called Fat, Drunk, and Stupid.
Yes, the mighty old Fat, Drunk, and Stupid. Which...
To pull you out of it.
To pull me out of it. I didn't even, I just sang in the band.
So there was no bass in this.
There's no bass.
This is the only band you've ever really sang in.
It's the only band I really ever sang in, except for The Lean, which I did later on when I got sober. But I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Who's in Fat, Drunk, and Stupid?
So it's a good friend of mine, Pat Dowling, Wayne Reynolds, John Grant, and Brian Tomei.
And these guys are out of
Stockton.
Stockton.
And these are all good old friends of mine. And one day it was like a week after I'd quit Shootin' Lucy. And I was over at their house. They were jamming. They're like, "Come on over, KT." I'm sitting there drinking beers, just out of it.
Yeah, slamming them down.
And this was getting close to where I was going to quit,
Yeah.
And I remember I just picked up the mic and I just started letting out everything in my mind, in my heart that was going on.
Just all that pain you had bottled up.
All that pain that I had bottled up, I let it out. And all the songs were about me, like what I wanted to do. There was, songs that were called like Let's Die, I Can't Drink No More, I Got a Swollen Liver, Live in a Van Down by the River, and people just loved it. And I was in tears singing those songs because I was just
screaming and singing.
Because I hated my life. I hated myself. And I just didn't want anything to do with life at all.
And so people were attracted to probably the passion that you had
You're right.
Even though it was for the wrong things,
right.
But you were feeling it.
But and like I said, like I'm trying to say, like everyone around me was probably not realizing what I was feeling.
Because you were the life of the party.
Life of the party. Everyone was having a great time, man. Everyone's partying. But like I said, I used to say, when the party ended and everybody went home, I didn't have nowhere to go.
The party didn't stop.
The party didn't stop. Or I'd just go out and sleep in my van, or I'd go sleep in the couch, someone's couch. And
everyone else was going to crash in their bed and kind of pull out of it.
I used to have a joke. I'd say most of my friends at this age are looking for extensions on their home loans. I'm looking for an extension cord to plug into my van. You know what I mean?
So you kind of come out of it with Fat, Drunk, and Stupid. You said there was a couple years where you knew you had to quit drinking.
The last 5 years of my life, the last 5 years of partying and drinking, I knew that I wanted to quit. I was done.
And that was every day.
That was every day, and everybody, how do you do it? That was the whole thing. It's like I knew I wanted it, but I just had to execute it.
And you said your mother was in AA.
My mother was in AA. She still is, 38 years. And, I spent a lot of my life in AA as a kid because my mom would drag us down there because she had to be down at those meetings, And
so you sat in meetings as a kid?
As a kid. So I knew that,
You knew there was community.
And I also knew that there's life after this and that it can be done. And I just pushed myself to the final limit. And I knew that if I didn't quit before I was 40 years old, I was never going to quit.
Yeah.
And it was a month before my 39th birthday. I woke up, had no idea how I got there. And I was on my mom's couch, and I'd have a pot to piss in. I hadn't showered in probably 3 fucking weeks. And I said, this has got to stop.
You were partied out.
This is done.
Yeah.
And I did. And
at that point, you quit drinking.
I quit. Well, I came up with a plan. And I'm getting very personal here on this show, so everyone... I knew I could quit drinking. I knew I could quit doing drugs because drugs were recreational. You can't live on drugs. But if they're there, I was going to do them.
Yeah.
My problem was with the alcohol because that was my everyday thing, and it led me to do stupid decisions. So I had this plan, and I used drugs to lay off the drinking. So I stayed up on drugs for 3 months. 3.5 months.
But at that point, you quit drinking.
But I had quit drinking, and I hadn't took one drop of alcohol after 3 months of that. But I was, using. And then I said, well, it's time. I knew it was time, and I had already had a pre-planned. I had good friends in Oakland, who I won't mention their names, but they had a grow op going on, and they knew I was a hard worker. I was always a hard worker. And they said, KT, you got a job, place to live, and money. Just get here. They knew I quit drinking, so they were very stoked on that.
Yeah. They were encouraging.
They were encouraging. They were helping me. And I didn't tell them I was kicking, but after I went there and I did it, and I kicked it, and I never went back.
And this is 2009?
This is 2009 into 2010 now, because I stopped on my birthday, or right month before my birthday in 2009. That was August 10th. So it carried around into 2010, the drugs, and then I stopped. And then I have been clean ever since.
Wow. It's a tough story, but it's a beautiful story, And I really congratulate you on your sobriety.
I thank you so much.
And I think what we're going to talk about here in our next segment really going to show what you've done with that, And I think, like you said, a lot of people in our scene, when we see that, we really don't, we might think of quitting drinking, but we really don't know how to go about it.
Exactly.
And it's great that you share your story to tell people that it can happen.
Thank you.
So you bottom out there with Fat, Drunk, and Stupid. You get sober. And we're going to come right back, and we're going to talk about what you've done since then. We'll be right back with more of KT.
Shattered all the windows, and now the bedroom sleep with snow. We have been burning our books and photographs. We kept pictures, our generation. We're hoping the winner it doesn't last. The simple things, without the room it smelled the smoke from the chimney who bumped two packs a day in the driveway where he choked. And now my mother is outside, standing in that same light, resting against the two-door sedan. We get to call home tonight. I watch the flashing lights as they took you away. I'll be back in school. My mom and me on this old Kentucky road. No maps and only two pillows.
Alrighty, and we are back with our guest KT, kind of talking about his newfound sobriety after quite a few years partying in the bands, the Oozzies, Crossbones, Shootin' Lucy, and Fat, Drunk, and Stupid. And so you come out of it, and who's the person you want to be? What's the end result that you're going, that you can see?
Well, when I first got sober, when I first was sober, the first 6 months, all I could think about was music. That's all I wanted to do was music. And a lot of people, and I would tell a few of my friends, and they'd be like, man, I don't know if that's a great idea for you. And I was like, I think it's a great idea because I know what real bands do. They don't do what I'm doing. And to touch back on getting sober, my main thing is I didn't want to be that guy that quit drinking and quit using and was a fucking asshole.
Quit music.
Yeah, and I am an asshole. You can ask a lot of my friends. I can be a real fucking asshole. But for the most part, I'm around drinking, I'm around drugs, I'm around all of it.
To this day.
To this day. But I don't give a shit. It has nothing to do with me. You do what you want. I'm not going to put you down. And I've had good friends of mine come up to me and tell me, that have gotten sober and telling me we couldn't have done it without you.
And you were part of it even without knowing.
And I had no fucking idea. I had no idea. They're just like, well, fuck, if you can do it, I can do it. Yeah,
they were biggest partier they ever knew.
Right. And they knew, they must have been feeling the same way I was feeling inside, I was basically just the life of the party and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I was.
And outside of the party, it wasn't pretty.
It was no life to be had. Yeah. Not for me. Not life I wanted to be.
So after you kind of clean up with your friends that offer you a place to stay at the Grow Op, and you come out of that, and then you land in Oakland.
That was in Oakland where I was, and then I landed the place where I'm at now with the Shaky Shack is what we call it. And it's because the foundation was all messed up, and if anybody was having sex in that house, boy, you'd know it because the shake when your soda can would be rolling right off the table. You know what I mean?
The remote control fall right off the bed, right?
And that's been the first place I've lived in since I've gotten my shit together. And
that's kind of your first home.
That's my first home.
Time.
Yeah, and I've been there, and I haven't left.
And you came out of it, and music was on your mind. And what do you jump into? You jump into a band as soon as I got stable. My friends had a band called the Twats. Mark Lee Hart and Sebastian Stewart had this band, and the singer lived in London. And there was a Bob Fest going. You've heard of Bob Fest, right? It was in England that year, and that was the first. They said, "You want to play bass?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to play bass." So you joined the Twats on the spot.
I practiced for about 2 months, and we went to England and played. And I got on a stage in London, and that was the first time I'd been on stage in probably 6 years.
First time ever on stage sober since
yeah,
the cover bands.
Since the cover band, or since it was, and it was just like whoa. And so then I came back, and a good friend of mine, Mike DePike, I went on tour with him. And
that was with Neutral Boy.
Neutral Boy,
a lot of our listeners know Neutral Boy.
Exactly.
Famous for Dick to Cry On.
Yeah,
some other great classics.
And some other things, yeah. And so I did that, and that got me really pushed into music. That tour was like, okay, this is starting to snowball. And I played with Hal, my drummer now, in that first situation, that tour.
So he was part of Neutral Boy at the time, or touring with Mike.
Just that he is an old member of Neutral Boy. In that tour that we did together, he just did it. He had already been out of the band, but me and him kind of just did it for that tour.
And you had done a couple tours with Neutral Boy?
After that, I did 2 or 3 more after that, yeah.
Okay.
And me and Mike are pretty good close friends. So.
And that was always a good time?
It was always a good time, for the.
And that's playing the bars and.
That's playing the bars and strip clubs and whatever. You know what I mean? The good times,
Yeah, and he's been doing it a long time. I mean.
Yeah, he's a long time.
It's quite a story, just the story of Neutral Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
If people could tune in on that. So you're playing with Neutral Boy, and you say you're jamming with Hal. And Hal is kind of a connection to a lot of this, where he around that time was jamming with our friend Robbie in the band Manatee.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit before that. I don't know the timelines of that.
Hal was playing in Year of the Fist.
Yeah, Hal had asked me on that tour if I wanted to play, and I didn't even give him an answer, I don't think. And I don't think I said anything for like 3 months after we got back, but then I ended up joining, and I don't even know where to start with those guys. They're just so awesome.
Great band here from Oakland,
awesome.
Based out of Oakland, which is Squeaky and Katie and Hal.
Yes.
And you've been in the band now 4 or 5 years?
I'm going on 4 years.
Okay.
And,
excellent band out of Oakland. Check them out, all our listeners.
It's probably the first real band I've ever been in my life. I mean, I can't even begin. I don't even know where to begin how much hard work that those people put in. And
real band, you mean these guys are doing the work.
They're doing
it the right way.
They're doing it the right way. They're doing hard work. And, I sit back and I go, man, I really don't know anything about anything. I feel bad sometimes, but like I said, I can't thank them enough for letting me be a part of it. I just love them so much.
Yeah. So they've put out an album. They've put out, what was the name of their full length album before you were in the band?
Death, Breath, Light, and Pain.
So they have that. That's available on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
You can find that. And then you end up recording the 7-inch with them, Dirty Laundry.
Yes, sir.
And where do you guys record that at?
We did it at Bart Thurber's. Which is the autopsy room.
Okay.
Is that right? I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I'm terrible. My memory sucks. But we did that with Bart, and that came out really well, and pretty stoked. And then, we just been pushing it this past year.
And yeah, you guys have landed some big shows lately. Show at Slim's.
L7 show sold out.
You had the show at the Independent.
It's a sold out independent show.
So things, you could say are going really well for that band.
They're doing very well as far as I'm concerned.
Everything I see you guys doing, I go, damn, awesome.
Yeah.
Whoa, shit, KT gets to do that. Awesome, man.
Yeah, they're working really hard.
So yeah, I know it's everybody really putting in a lot of hard work. I know you guys have done This Is My Fest most of the years.
We did 3 of the 4.
3 of the 4 years. So you guys have been kind of a name out here and becoming a name in the Oakland scene. Also through over the last couple years, you've been jamming in a band called Twin Screw Steamer.
Yes.
Which has Sean from Civil War Rust, Robbie, who's famously from the .commies, and of course Nick and Brandon.
Nick and Brandon.
And how long have you been jamming with those guys?
A little over 2 years now, I think it's been. And like I said, it's another fantastic band that I am just honored to be asked to be played in.
Another group of hard workers.
We don't do as much as say You're the Fist does. It's more
touring wise.
Yeah, it's more of a writing stuff and being at the studio. But I love the band. The music is amazing.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing with that band.
All those guys are just so awesome. Like I said, I'm super blessed to come out of where I was and to be in these bands. It's just amazing.
Yeah, to be in these 2 solid bands now out of Oakland. So yeah, it really shows what you can do.
If you put your mind to it and you're done. If you really want to, if you want to hang up the party hat and dry out a little bit, and you want to get busy in music, you can do it. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, it's not too late.
Like I said, I'm very fortunate to have these people put me under their wings, both of these bands, and I'm very fortunate, and I just it's awesome.
Good to be with all these hard-working people. So coming up for You're the Fist, you guys going into Japan. You're leaving in a couple days.
I leave Wednesday night.
Yeah. So what's
konnichiwa?
What's your expectation for that? Are you excited?
I'm excited. My anxiety's up a little bit, but my whole thing.
You've traveled to Europe. You've played in Europe.
Not Europe, just England.
Okay.
So, which is UK technically.
Okay.
But we're going to be shooting for that next year. But my anxiety is high. But all I've ever cared about is that 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And how you release it and how you kick ass on it. That's my release. That's what I do any of this stuff for. Is for that 35 minutes to rock.
Yeah, and that's why you thought the party may have enhanced that.
Oh, yeah. You always think partying's going to enhance it, man. I tell this story. Like, you ever see that one cartoon of the mole? He comes out of his hole every day, and he looks at his house, and it looks like a big, bright castle.
Yeah.
And moles can't see very well. So this mole goes to the eye doctor, and he gets a pair of glasses on. He goes back to his house, and it's a big fucking pile of trash. That's how my life was.
That's what
I think
the partying goggles do.
Exactly. And then once I got sobered up, I was like, oh my God, I have so much work to do. But like I said, my life is so amazing right now.
So you're heading to Japan. Do you know any of the bands you're playing with over there? Are they Japanese bands or is
they're
there
all
American
Japanese
bands? Okay.
They're all Japanese bands.
And the punk bands or the rock bands that are over there?
Exactly.
And then how many shows are you guys going to do?
We have 9 shows.
Oh, wow.
Pretty sure.
It's almost 2 weeks over there?
Yeah. We're over there 10 days. I know that.
You know where at?
It's all in Tokyo.
Everything's out there.
But it's all spread out. Some shows, I'm terrible at this stuff. I haven't really paid one bit of attention. I'm more worried about other shit. But most of I think like the farthest show is a 4-hour train ride away.
Okay, so it's just one flight to Tokyo, and then you're going to take care of all these shows.
And then we're going to take care of all the shows.
And so about 2 weeks in Tokyo, and then you guys are going to come back and record.
We're working on trying to record and get another new full length out by next year.
And the songs are already in process on that?
Oh, we've got some songs in process. I don't have too many details, but that's the deal.
Excited for that.
I'm excited for that.
And then same with Twin Screw Steamer, also planning a full-length album next year.
Yeah, we're trying to record. That's the plan, is to record a record.
I think we all look forward to hearing both those records.
Thank you so much.
And then what else is coming up?
Just keep it going, man.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, is that your message? I mean, at your age now, what you said was, you're 40.
I just turned 46.
46.
46 years old. And
looking back, I mean, you've done 25 years in the scene.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't think I was ever, I mean, I was always a part of it all, but I think now I'm a real part. And I'm, you know.
You feel it, you'd say more than ever now.
I feel like more than ever now, like I'm here and I'm a solid part of this scene. And
I mean, as much as you're doing, how busy are you with music, though? I mean, you're 2, 3, 4 nights a week.
I'm 3 nights a week at the studio.
Yeah.
I just filled in for another band, played bass for reunions. We just did a run.
Yeah, great band.
Great band,
got a
great
full-length
songs.
record coming out.
They
reunions.
got a full length, great dudes. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So you're taking extra work on,
you know, without. But I don't take what doesn't pull away from my 2 main bands, especially Year of the Fist. Like that's my main goal. That's my main deal.
Yeah.
You know, and I have to.
But keeping busy is really.
But keeping busy is where it's at. You know, we only practice 1 night a week, but we also practice at home. I just like to keep. I don't have no girlfriend. I got a rent, and that's it. Rent and bills.
And you've got your own business that pays all that.
I got my own business, my painting business, and I just kick ass at that. Make people happy with their homes, and then when I just paint to play.
That's it. Paint to play.
You know, and that's just my goals right now, is just to keep playing.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you've done a great job, you know, pulling out of the darkness and getting into some really well-established bands.
I'm very fortunate, very lucky, and I count my blessings every day.
Well, I can't wait to hear the records come out. I want to thank you for coming in and sharing your story here today. I hope some people can, you know, maybe catch a little word of the wise, you know.
Yeah.
I think you have quite a history.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to hear, you know, some of the stories about the older bands.
Yeah.
You know, and the bands before YouTube, before Facebook, and, you know, to hear the timelines and to realize, hey, this all went on long before that, and it'll go along after that.
It will. It definitely will. Back then, the internet was 7 pages of binder paper.
Yeah, and that's how you book the shows.
And that's how we booked the shows. And we looked for payphones.
Yeah.
You know, that was the thing. Oh, shit, we got to call these guys. We're on our way. We got to let them know we're making it, you know?
Yeah,
that's how it was, you know? And now I'm pretty much computer illiterate. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, I can email you.
The internet's a foreign language.
It's hard for me. You know what I mean? Like I'd have to sit down and really focus on it. You know, I don't have a computer. I just have my phone. So that's, you know.
You've got the access to the web, but it's not consuming your time.
It's not, because I'm a hands-on guy. Everything I do is like verbally or physically.
That could be another great message to send to the kids right now, you know?
Yeah,
kinda,
well,
you know.
I will say this, today's era, like with my job being a house painter, I got more work than ever now, because majority of people don't work.
Yeah.
They either type it into their computer and press enter.
A lot of electronic jobs.
You know, like that, where I'm a physical guy. And it's like, oh, you do that? Well, we need that. You know, like that's why my business.
Everybody's got a job for you to take on, right?
Exactly. And it just prospered for me. So it's great. I mean, life is really wonderful. And I can't thank my friends enough. You, everybody.
Right on. You know? Well, I want to thank you again for coming in and sharing your story.
You bet. I'll come back again.
Right on, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in to Alternative Discussion West, episode 11. This is Ryan signing off. Thanks.
Bye.